Welcome everyone to the Village of New Paltz Planning Board meeting for July 5th, 2023. I am Zach Bielecki. I'll be chairing this meeting in place of John Linton. We have some administrative business, 2 public hearings, and a couple application reviews tonight. So first order, did everyone get a chance to review the June 20th meeting minutes?
Yep.
Okay. Could I get a motion to approve the minutes?
So move. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We got the quorum, right? Because it's 5-member board, 3 people, and including
Yes.
the alternate. So we're just to clarify that. we're on that.
And if Terry, you were the alternate for that meeting, are you allowed to approve the minutes?
No, he was there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Success.
Great. Moving on, are there any updates from the village board? Willie Murray, anything?
No
to-
updates.
Okay, great. Or the Ulster County Planning Board, I guess. Great. Our Environmental Policy Board liaison isn't here tonight. So the next item is the preliminary memo from Grenier and Larios regarding the pump station on Route 32, Stop 32. Did everyone get a chance to review that memo? Were there any
I didn't get a chance to review that yet.
items, any questions? Gary, anything that,
I mean, obviously, it's preliminary. There's some real investigative work that needs to be done to find out why that pump is operating the way it is. I'm not disputing the fact that it needs to be replaced. I'm sure it does. You
yeah,
know, these sewer pump stations like this, they don't last too much more than 20 years, and this one's at 20 years after the last substantial upgrade to it. And obviously the pictures the engineer sent us are compelling.
yeah,
You know, the whole thing it's used up its useful life. So, but no, I think we need to wait for the engineer to complete his investigation of the whole system, you know, before we really can get into substantive conversations about it.
right. Yeah, the only question that I had about it was, does this cost estimate, is this the cost to upgrade the pump for future capacity, or is this just to replace the current size pump that serves the existing buildings there?
I didn't
Yeah.
figure that out myself.
Okay. Well, maybe that's something I'll ask him in an email. If that's it, I think we can move on to, oh, actually, there was one more item. The draft DEIS round 2 for New Paltz Apartments. That will be coming back before the board at our next meeting. And it's a very sizable document. So I'd like to propose that we split it up into sections, similar to how we did the EAF part 2 at the last meeting. and review it section by section. In addition, Emily suggested we start by looking at the response section. So there's a section where they responded to each of our concerns.
There's a separate drive, folder in the Google Drive with those responses. Comments.
Great.
Unfortunately, I'm not going to be available for that meeting,
Okay.
and I'm not sure how I can help you.
Yeah, that's fine.
Not that I wouldn't enjoy going back through that 1,000 pages of documentation.
Should we also assume this is gonna be a more than one meeting discussion, given the amount of material and the number of topics?
Yes.
I think that's probably fair to say.
So Terry
Yeah.
could still, excuse me, Zach, I'm sorry, but Terry, you could still own a section and
Well,
then
yeah.
we'll do that one when you come back.
And that's fine. That's fine. You know, I'm not trying to get out of it. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I think that's probably true. And so if everyone's in agreement, then I can circulate a document based on the table of contents with each of the sections that we need to go through individually sign up for. There was one more thing. There's also a application that needs to be closed, requests to be closed. Autumn, what was the number of that application?
Maybe 4 to 20 of these. That's on the closure memo.
Okay. Oh, okay, right. Okay, so I'd like to get a motion to close PB 22-20 and return all remaining escrow fees. Oh, there are no escrow fees that need to be returned. So I'd just like a motion to close the application.
So
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So moving on, are there any public comments tonight? General public comments, not specifically about one of the two applications that are here for public hearings. Seeing none, I'd like to move on to. Is anyone ready online?
So we have one.
Okay. Well, if anyone would like to comment online, they can send a text message via Zoom chat, via Zoom. So moving on to the public hearings, I'd like to get a motion to open the public hearing for PB 23-11, 43 Center Street.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. 43 Center Street, is someone here for that application? Do you want to?
The application.
Oh, you'd like to? Yes, generally this is, yeah. If I can answer something, then I will, but go ahead.
So I live at 39 Center, which is exactly next door to that house. One of the oldest houses on the street. on Center
I'm
Street.
sorry, Bill. Can we have your name?
Cora Smaldone. And so I heard that the house is being knocked down and a brand new house is being put up. Originally, I was told that the gentleman applied for an 8-bedroom house because he wanted to move all of the employees from the Indian restaurant to live there. Then it was reduced to 5 bedrooms with a full basement, which is completely capable of being 4 more bedrooms. So I'm concerned about having a huge rooming house that will affect the quality and value of my house built literally like this close, you know. My question is, if it's a single family dwelling, there's 2 kitchens, 3 bathrooms, 5 bedrooms, and the potential for at least 4 more bedrooms in there in the basement. What's our standing on occupancy in a single family dwelling?
Yes, thank you for your question. So couple things, the house, the plan has been reduced to just 1 kitchen. And since it is a single family home, there are legal definitions of what that means. And generally, if the residents living there are not related, there can only be 3 people in a family. That would be the maximum that would be allowed as a family
If they're not related.
if they're not related. However, if they are all related, then you can have a much larger family. So
There's no cap on that.
not that I know of. Emily?
Right, but I think the building that's approved is the building that's approved, so it doesn't need
Right.
more bedrooms than what are in the.
Right. I mean,
And that would be to, you know, if I was in my family here, I want to be able to house them. I'm hoping I don't have 24 family in a, as soon as it's approved, but new partitions stuck up on the inside. I mean, I'm being very frank. It's after they leave and everything's cleaned and done, there's no reason for me not to think that there'll be 4 more bedrooms in the basement, or that the larger bedrooms will be subdivided. I'm not looking for that traffic next to me. It will completely affect the value of my home.
that's, yeah, I think that's a fair concern, but that is, you know, if that's something you think is happening after the building is completed, then we do have a building inspector, and they are the ones that would be enforcing the code and enforcing that they've only built what they say they have built. Okay, thank you. Does anyone else have comments regarding 43 Center Street? Yes.
Christine Marmo, and I live on Huguenot Street, and I'm interested in the community project and community development. I really admit not being able to comment about the hotel, because I really haven't looked in detail at the plans, and I personally think that that area should be revitalized, maybe with more pedestrian traffic, but that's not why I'm speaking at this point.
I'm sorry, are you referring to
Center Street, that point, isn't that the same as Center Street and the hotel?
Those are two separate, yeah.
And what I'd like to talk about is the taking down that house, which it seems like in the past month, you've had 3 requests for taking down buildings. And I'm concerned that in taking down a building, I would ask, in taking it down, would it enhance the neighborhood with the replacement building? Would it be a detriment? Would it have no effect? I mean, those are determinations that affect the quality of the neighborhood. And oftentimes these replacements, not always, but oftentimes they're manufactured housing, which I think could easily be put as rental by the room, which is a problem in neighborhoods. If indeed it could be, I know you could have a family in there, I'm sure that would be cool, and there'd be integration in the neighborhood, but when you have single rental rooms, it becomes difficult.
Yes, again, so since this is a single family home, if there are more than 3 people who are not related, that would not be allowed. So,
I mean,
Right.
the court said it's like, oh, but it's all related, but those 3 are not, it becomes an enforcement.
yes, agreed.
Sorry, Annie, you finished, because I speak to 43 Main Street, Center Street as well. Good evening, I'll stand up. My name is Anton Stewart, 180 Main Street. So looking at 43 Center Street, which I printed the plans out today, this surely looks like a room rental thing, the way it looks at a single family house with that amount of parking. It's got 4 parking spaces by the side of it and very small rooms, all of which look like they share bathroom facilities. You know, this is something which I think is, it's obviously high density housing and we need affordable housing in the village. But you have to wonder, is this actually, as the last speaker said, is going to be detrimental to the area? My understanding, Joe Butler's house, which I know is that, I know we don't spare that month, but it's a beautiful, quaint, and it's not dilapidated, to be honest. You know, it could easily be brought up to spec. But it's just my 2 cents on it. I don't think it would add to the overall look at the residential.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, can I just make a comment?
Yes, please.
I just want to let the audience know, and this isn't to try to, divert your comments to this board, because of course this board wants to hear from you, but the board that would control what the zoning permits is the Village Board of Trustees. So this board applies those laws and, sees if the criteria are met. But if you are unhappy with the way the laws are written or the criteria that are in there, that would be something to bring to the Village Board of Trustees.
Thanks. And I feel compelled to make a comment about the comments and about the comments that were shared in a prior meeting as well. This is obviously a public board of volunteers, and we are, an instrument through which these plans for our village come. And I've been a member of this planning board for several years, and now I've returned for a second opportunity to volunteer. And public comment and generally and specifically about applications is a really important process when we are considering applications. The comment I want to make is that I'm encouraging everyone who brings comments to the meeting to make comments about the plan and the code and the application and its details and its applicability with regard to the code. And I think the concern I have from last meeting's comments and this meeting is that there's a lot of inference and a lot of subjectivity to the way some of the comments are framed and brought. And in fact, in last meeting's comments, there was more conversation about people and the suspicion of the people that might occupy these proposed plans, as opposed to the plan and whether that plan conforms to the village code. And I want to make sure that I'm really clear and direct in saying that we're not here to question the occupants of these proposed plans and applications, but we're here to review the application with regard to the code. And I would ask that we really be very thoughtful as a community and as contributors to this dialogue in making that distinction when you bring a comment to this board.
Thank you. I think that's an important distinction to make. Were there any more public comments regarding 43 Center Street? Okay, seeing none, would I like to get a motion to close the public hearing for 43 Center Street?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great. Moving on, PB 22-04, 184 Main Street. Are there any public comments for that project? Yes, starting on the end, please.
Thank you very much. It's Adam Siegel. 310 Ridge Road. I have to review the site plan. There were several amendments to the site plan on this matter. This lot measures approximately 100 by 179 feet. The proposed building is going to take up 3,000 a little plus square feet. However, I think that the big issue here is, fortunately for us, New Paltz has been, since COVID, a place to be and provides a lot of opportunities. However, I think the situation involving this particular application and proposal is overkill. The applicant, and looking at the site plan and the parking, has made some assumptions that are really, and it's interesting that planning board member mentioned subjective with regard to the availability of parking and the ability of the operation to handle the number of people. It does only have 12 rooms, but it has a 100-seat restaurant proposed for the site, which will now increase traffic on Main Street. Those of us who reside in the community know that Main Street, when the traffic begins to pile up on the weekends, particularly in the summer and the fall, can be very congested. The other thing is that the plan, which calls for assumes certain factors, that is, that 3 people will come in 1 car. It also does not have any other outlet, so that what you're doing is, with the spaces that are provided in the plan, you're pouring all of those out to other streets. That is Mill Rock, that is also Manheim, so that the true nature, and I assume that is one of the reasons that the applicant has to look for an exception here, also as to height. The building, just as an aside, the building does not do anything to enhance the community. It's 3 stories, where everything else is less than that height. So in terms of the footprint of the building, they're showing 25 parking spaces, and by their representative's own admission in one of the submissions, it's very tight in terms of the parking. So what we're doing here is, what they're doing here is, they are looking for other avenues which to find parking. They don't have sufficient parking. That is, one of the considerations. When we talk about development, it has come to light in recent years that many towns, in the search for ratables, overlook the issue of, does this plan really conform, or do we need the ratables? Now, I'm not saying that's an issue here necessarily. However, I think the entire plan is misconceived. We already have a Hampton Inn when you come off the highway. There's another motel next to it. And there is now proposed another hotel down by the Water Street Market. So the issue then becomes, perhaps, the proponents of this plan, rather than a hotel, commercial property, which will only engender more traffic, might wish to consider what has become popular in many towns, small studio apartment units, and see if they could, somehow do a second floor garages underneath. They wouldn't need all that parking that they're asking for now. So I think there is a misconception here in terms of the project that is only going to increase density of cars rather than, helping the community in some way. I also note that the the hotel abuts 299. And so my question would be to the applicant at this point and the board, whether or not they have applied to the Department of Transportation for a work permit. From the Department of Transportation website, and if you don't mind, I will read to you. If your commercial property or development plans involve new or modified access to a state highway, and this is the key issue here, or involve any change of use or expansion of an existing development on a state highway, you will need a highway work permit from the state of New York Department of Transportation. I think we can all agree that 299 is a dangerous highway if you're attempting to make either a left or a right into the premises or out of the premises. And so I think that is an issue which needs to be considered in terms of any action we may consider. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any more comments regarding 184? Yes.
And I own the awareness shop next door to the big building. We've been there since 1997, so we've seen a lot of things change in the town and village. And I survived the interesting hookah bar project. And I'm a little bit concerned that this project may turn out to be a little more difficult and more permanent, meaning that things that were agreed to when permits were given didn't seem to be applied or enforced. You know, they were serving people well past 3 a.m. and now we're talking about a restaurant that may serve alcohol and people will be on an observation deck overlooking my property and dining room window at 3 a.m. and possibly intoxicated. I mean, I'm a little concerned too about restaurant smells and light pollution, and then the big one that this gentleman at the end mentioned, parking. You know, parking is really tight now. I can't imagine if we need to park another 30 cars in walking distance.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
My concerns are twofold that you already mentioned. Adequate parking, which you mentioned, but I'm more concerned about the traffic. I know what it's like on Main Street when there's any degree of traffic. And if people are coming from the interstate and they're coming along 299 to make a left into this location, can you imagine the backup of cars with people trying to make a left on that street to go into what would be their parking lot? I envision that's a big problem.
Okay. Understood. Yes. Yes, please.
I prepared these as written comments as well, so Mr. Chairman, if you would. you can-
Oh, thank you. And
There's
did
plenty
you
passed around.
email them to our
But I
project
I
manager?
certainly can and will.
Yes, thank you.
So, Mr. Chairman, and members of the planning board, I rise to speak in vehement opposition to this project. My wife and I own 180 Main Street, the property bordering 184 Main Street immediately to the west, which houses our business, the awareness shop, on the first floor, and our modest apartment on the second floor lot. Our property is a beautiful old Victorian structure of great character, known to many of the locals in New Paltz as simply the Purple House. The many corners of our building fill it with light, especially in our apartment's kitchen on the second floor of the eastern elevation. Enjoying our morning coffee in this sun-filled haven is one of our favourite things, as is relaxing on our front porch watching the world go by. To the rear of our property is a small annex, which together with the adjoining grounds is home to the Church of the Eternal Circle, New York's first federally recognised Celtic Wiccan fellowship. As practitioners of an earth-based religion, the cycles of the seasons and the phases of the moon are extremely important to us. When we gather to celebrate Sabbaths, key festivals, and the wheel of the year, and SBATs held on new and full moons. The striking nature of Newport's Mohonk Ridge skyline has spawned a flurry of planning applications from developers seeking to construct ever taller buildings, often topped by roof decks, in order to leverage these iconic views to their pecuniary advantage. Unfortunately, and ironically, in doing so, the structures themselves greatly detract from the scenic vistas of the village when viewed from a different perspective. When we first learned of the proposal for 184 Main Street, we were immediately taken aback, but realizing the project would require at least 11 variances in the current B1 business residential zoning, we didn't make a fuss, as we were fairly confident this prospect wasn't likely to come to, this proposal wasn't likely to come to fruition. However, it would see that the Jamal family is not without influence, as the village passed local law number 3 of 2022, conveniently eliminating B1 zoning and making the upper part of Main Street B2 core business, which specifically permits 3-story buildings with roof decks, while making our own building a non-permitted use. As zoning is no longer an issue, I respectfully ask that the planning board step up to the plate, do what is right, and deny this application. A massively tall, and with all due respect to the architects, borderline ugly rectangular box has no place on Upper Main Street. It's completely out of character with the surrounding structures. Moreover, it will completely overshadow our beautiful property, blocking the morning sun from shining in the windows of our kitchen, and we will never again see the full moon rise above our sofa. Perhaps more troubling is that it will be a complete violation of our privacy. Every one of the proposed guest rooms has a west-facing balcony, which gives occupants a direct view into the windows of our apartment. The proposed roof deck raises the injury to another level again. It will no longer be possible for us to hold a sacred rite within our church's grounds without being overlooked and quite possibly jeered at by those reveling on the deck. The village of Newport does not need another rectangular eyesore marring the picturesque skyline, nor does it need a boutique hotel and yet another restaurant. There are already more than 40 places to eat. What it needs is affordable housing. There is already insufficient parking in the village. Not only does this project have inadequate on-site parking, but the 25 spaces shown on the site plan are wildly unrealistic. Our own lot has just 7, and it's already very tight. Just being able to maneuver in and out of the shown spaces is going to be exceedingly difficult, and it will be virtually impossible to turn a delivery truck around. There are many other reasons why this project doesn't make sense, like the curious bike lane that ends abruptly at the raised bed by the side of our drive. But I feel I've taken enough of your time and should allow someone else to speak. In closing, I would simply implore you, for the love of all that's good and right in this world, please deny this application. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Are there any more comments regarding 184 Main Street? Yes.
I'm at 39 Center Street, so it's almost back to back with me. I want to say that I'm not against progress. I'm not a crazy. I don't have it in for any particular style of person, as was indicated. I'm worried about numbers, and I'm worried about the effect on the value of my house. That's what I'm worried about. Not a particular people. That was not what I meant to say. But in this instance, the only part that I think about that sticks in my head is the rooftop bar. I want to know about when it's closing or when it's supposed to close. I want to know what's happening with noise. And I'm not directly behind it, but I do understand that a 3rd floor makes a difference. I put a building up at 108 Main Street, and they made me throw away $30,000 worth of roof triangular pieces because it was blocking someone's view. That was a really strong board, and there was no getting around it. And I had to change my plan, make a flat roof. So I'm asking some of these questions. It might seem ridiculous. I know there's a lot of money that's come into this plan. These are not bad people. I know them. I'm fond of them. We're just concerned about the value and our lifestyle in our own houses. So.
Yes, absolutely. I will just say about that, like the hours and the noise levels and the odors are all something that we're considering as part of the plan. Yes, you.
Ironically, with all of this, so I'm just here just as an observer and listener, and then actually speaking to several folks. Again, I'm just kind of just curious again of the overall makeup of, you know, Main Street and how things are gonna play out. Because my family's owned that house for over 60 years. So I'm just, you know, I'm just here just really to listen, but then also just to see with the progression of how Main Street's gonna look.
Sorry, I'm not sure what the question is. Okay. Okay, and could you just state your name, please? Okay, thank you. All right, well, if that is all the public comments we have in the audience, Autumn, was there anything online that came through? Okay. Should we ask, is anyone online here to make a public comment regarding 184 Main Street? Okay. Well, I mean, I think that given the sensitivity of this application and the number of comments we're getting, I would recommend keeping the public hearing open for one more meeting. Does anyone else on the board have an opinion on that?
I agree.
Absolutely.
Okay, great. So in that case, should we adjourn this? I know that next meeting is pretty full, but should we include it in that meeting or adjourn it to another?
I think it's gonna take us a little while to get comments back from the county planning, and we also need to do the seeker circulation. So I would suggest maybe putting off, you know, for later in July, in August. right?
Okay.
Rather than the
First
next,
meeting in
the very
August.
next meeting. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so I'd like to, and actually, Autumn, what is the date of that first meeting? Okay. I'd like to get a motion to adjourn this public hearing until our August 1st meeting.
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that concludes our public hearing section tonight. I'd like to move on to the first application review, PB 23-13 for Oakwood Court. So do you want to just take a seat here? So I see that you did adjust the driveway width. Thank you for that. And were there any other changes that you made to the site plan?
We updated the date to reflect that the same change.
Right. Great. Well, in that case, we have a resolution of approval prepared. Just like to go through that quickly. Yes, this is the approval of an amended site plan to expand a deck at the rear of the property to expand the existing parking area in front of the property to accommodate side-by-side car parking. This resolution of approval does not include any specific conditions other than that the driveway shall be no more than 18 feet in width, as the code states and as your plan states. And then there are just a number of general conditions, standard conditions of approval. So I'd like to get a motion to approve this resolution from the board?
So
Second?
And could we have a roll call vote, please?
Aye.
Hi.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so this project is approved, application is approved, and Autumn, get you your.
Thank you for saving me the extra meeting.
You're welcome. Okay. Our second application review, PB 23-11, 43 Center Street. Like to come up. Okay, were there any changes to the site plan since the last
Not the
meeting?
site plan, we did update the floor plans to remove the second kitchen as
Right.
was requested.
Right.
That's been the only change that we've made.
Okay. And we are still waiting for the Ulster County Planning Board's review. They should have that after their next meeting, which is on July 12th. But I believe that what we could do for this meeting, well, does the board have any questions or issues they wanted to bring up?
Not aye.
Are there?
I don't know. If there's a way to work something out with the neighbors or to talk to them.
Well, I guess one thing that I think could help put the neighbor's mind at ease a little is just, if you could tell us who will be living there, is it just your family or will it be other unrelated workers? Okay. So you plan on just keeping the 5 bedrooms and filling those with your family members? Okay, thank you. That's what I understood, and I think it's just good to be very clear so everyone, the neighbors know. Okay. Well, at this point, I'm comfortable authorizing our attorney to draft a resolution of approval. Does anyone object to that?
Nope.
Okay. In that case, could I get a motion to authorize our attorney to prepare a resolution of approval for 23-11?
So move. Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
There's one thing that in one of the prior meetings, probably maybe even the immediate prior one, as everybody is thoughtful about the appearance of the neighborhood and the appearance of a new construction and a tear down of an existing building in the neighborhood. One of the things that came up was the aesthetic opportunity for the outbuilding that's there, the existing building, and how that could be integrated by its design or its paint and finish with the new home's construction. So it's not easy to indicate that on a plan, but it might be something that could be indicated as a condition of the resolution. That the outbuilding and its color and appearance be consistent with the construction and the color and appearance of the new house.
Oh, do you mean that he should change the outbuilding or that he should paint the house to look like the outbuilding? I mean, right now they match, it's like a pale yellow.
Right,
They've got like
I
a-
understand, I think I understand that you would like us to make the new like the outbuilding, is that correct?
Not
Or is that more
necessarily.
like,
I think what was discussed,
People like that better. That's what the neighbors want it to look similar.
right, that's,
I mean, the house, I look at the house, the roof looks like it's caving in. The roof is shaped like this. I mean, I don't know how difficult it is to whether that condemns an entire building, but if it does, then isn't that what we had? I'm just trying to like address some of their concerns because that is what.
Right. I don't think it's possible to renovate it into something that's usable for your purpose. But are you saying that the outbuilding has like a historic significance that you want to?
No, I'm just saying that the outbuilding and the building itself, right now they match. It's really kind of cute. There's like a little yellow house and it's got little accents on it, and then there's a little garage, and they're both, you've been by there, right? Or it's a little garage, they're both painted the same way, and they have like, you know,
Yeah. But if they were,
not very,
if the outbuilding was repainted to match the new structure, I think that would also have the same effect, right?
I don't know, it depends on how they did it. I don't know. I mean, I know I grew up in a neighborhood where there were large families. We had 3 kids, but everyone else had 12. We all had the same size house. Somehow they put more kids in the rooms.
Yeah, so my suggestion was that the resolution would read that the outbuilding would be painted or prepared in a way that made it look consistent with the house.
Sure.
And it's
All right. That's acceptable.
I think I support that too. So, Emily, is there something that we need to say in the motion to include that in the?
No, because you're going to be voting on the resolution.
Okay.
So once it comes around, you can
Got
see
it.
if you like it.
That sounds good. Okay, well, in that case, I believe that's everything that we can do right now until we get that response back from Ulster County Planning. And then we will have the draft resolution and can go from there.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and finally, PB 2204, 184 Main Street.
Good evening.
Hi. So, were there any updates since you were last before us? Any new submissions you'd like to just?
We submitted the EAF, updated that. Beyond that,
What about the special use permit narrative? Could you walk us through that briefly?
we submitted the special use application narrative. Again, just as far as it relates to the sort of character of the neighborhood. We believe that a restaurant, which is in the character of Main Street, there's no substantial change there relative to the buildings around it. A hotel is of a benefit, we feel, to the community, and not detrimental.
And actually, one thing that came up in the public comments was the variances required, but I don't believe that.
Yeah, I think that, well, that sounded a
Project
bit like an exaggeration, but, I mean, we have no variance, we are
Right.
seeking no variances. So I
So
guess 10 to
everything-
0.
There was an earlier version,
Yeah, I was
right,
gonna
that
say-
that needed a variance, but
That's
this
why.
version does not.
There were a couple things that are important considerations for the members that commented, members of the community that commented. One of the former plans did require a certain number of variances, and that's no longer the case. So there's been several iterations and updates to this application that are a little different than maybe what some of the public were commenting on. The other public comment that was referencing the 100-seat restaurant, the restaurant is a 35-seat restaurant in its current.
Last I knew it was 75, you're saying 30.
35, yeah.
Maybe the most recent thing is.
It wouldn't have been.
Yeah, they might not have updated it in the village.
It's a 35-seat restaurant, 14-room hotel. And the parking per code and for the traffic study and our own traffic engineers assessment is adequate for that facility. And however, there is the assumption that the 35-seat restaurant might require community parking, street parking for a certain number of customers in that what's now a pretty small restaurant. So I think there's really valid comments being made about the scale and the qualities of the project, but I think a lot of them might have been made on some of the older application specifics.
Right.
I'm curious whether it's possible to provide some sort of visual attenuation, maybe, some sort of shield to prevent, I don't know if this is possible, but to prevent their concern that people would be able to look into their window in the, I have no idea whether there's a way that you could plant the trees or.
Step back from the edge of the roof line, so you won't get a direct shot down anyways, because of the requirement of the setback on the roof deck.
And I think that's a complicated issue on one hand, just from if I have, I mean, two neighbors can see each other. So perhaps I'm in a scenario where I live next to an empty lot, but if someone builds a house there,
Okay.
they would seem to have as much right as I do to the sun and to,
Oh,
their privacy.
sure.
I guess it would be up to them if they wish to build something on their side to prevent anyone from seeing in there. But I don't know if that would be the responsibility of the owners of 184 to make sure that no one could see into their house.
Right.
I would say that it's not out of the realm of conversation we've had at the planning board to obscure things like traffic lights for parking, and to make sure that exterior lighting isn't something that affects the neighbor. But the ability to see across the property, I think, is something that I've not seen a lot of requirement to obscure.
No.
I mean, in fairness, it wouldn't be the intention of, if someone is having a good time on the roof deck, presumably they want to be looking out into a sort of a greater distance. We're somewhat, the edge of the roof deck is set back, I think, 4 or 5 feet from the edge of the roof, which there's a parapet wall, so it's not. You're as Sharif saying, we're not at the property line edge looking down directly onto the adjacent property. I mean, we are set back to the other side of the property.
So you're saying that the sight lines from where a person would be standing would be going over the adjacent property?
Yeah, I guess if it's, if this is 4 or 5 feet and again, it's not like it's not
Right,
a wall,
right.
and perhaps it doesn't satisfy what they're looking for, but it's sort of, I'm here. The parapet wall is about where Sharif is, and then
Yes.
the awareness shop building is some distance beyond there.
There's also some distance, because, it's on the east side of the property, the building, so there's 56 feet between the building and just to the property line. We're proposing a fence, and then I don't know how far their house is.
They have their driveway
They
there.
have the driveway plus some yardage.
A fair amount of distance.
And what is the total height of the parapet? Is 35 feet?
30.
So
I think and also with respect to the guest rooms, I think it's also important to note that the guests aren't going to want people looking in their room in the evening either. So they're likely going to be pulling the shades down in the evening. So it's unlikely that guests who are occupying the hotel during the evening are actually going to be trying to gaze across 50 some feet to another property's windows at night. They're going to be as concerned about privacy as the neighbors.
right.
I'm not sure there would be any satisfactory solution anyways. I mean, if you live right next door to somebody or you have a building next door to somebody, you look out this window here, I could see the house across the street. So I don't necessarily believe that there is a solution that'll really be adequate.
Well, but beyond that, I think we're viewing this in a negative light that I don't know if is fair. I mean, this is something people may see what's going on at the awareness shop and find it interesting and want to participate or be involved or go there and visit. It doesn't seem like that's
it seems like we're acting as though that's just an absolute exclusion, and I don't think that that's, that doesn't seem fully reasonable to
We've
me.
got a parking lot between the building and the awareness shop, so
Mhm.
theoretically, you could put a line of taller trees or something like that, I don't know.
I mean, again,
Space.
yeah. I mean, I also, I mean, I would imagine they would be at liberty, or may have the room to do that as well. But I mean, I recognize that people see this as not a positive relationship, but I don't know why that is explicitly so.
From past experiences, we have the problem has been used.
You can't speak.
Oh, we can't speak,
Okay.
I didn't realize that, sorry.
But we
Thank you.
heard that in your other comments. so
Thank you. Yeah, and sorry, I forgot what I was going with that. Yeah, I mean, I assume that do you have estimates on the amount of foot traffic that it would be drawing? I just think that there'd be a number of people walking.
I mean, presumably, you know, I mean, again, part of the goal, I think, and maybe overall zoning goal would be, I mean, this is a walkable village.
Right.
You can park your car 5 minutes away and walk to a restaurant like I might if I was in Woodstock or, you know, the West
Yeah.
Village or, you know, or a lot of places. You know, I mean, I think that we have a parking lot that, you know, means that there's no impact on the street. That's just, it takes up a tremendous amount of space, and it's not indicative generally of any sort of real vital community. I mean, we don't have any sort of statistics on who will be walking there, but I mean, I think that if I was to visit New Paltz and stay in this nice hotel that was not the Hampton Inn, not by the highway, but in part of the village, that would be the benefit, is that I would walk to the village. I would either eat at the restaurant there, or I would walk down and eat to another, you know, eat at another restaurant, or stop at the awareness shop, or sort of experience some, you know, a little more, get a little more involved in the experience of this community.
Right,
I mean, I understand it's not, you know, I mean, it's not housing, but it's commercial. Commercial is not inherently in any fashion a negative thing. I think that it's just sort of we're acting as though, or it's being portrayed as we're having a commercial project and that leads to traffic. It only leads to these sort of negatives, and it just doesn't seem like that is really looking at what's happening.
We also have black tupelo trees planted along the edge of the parking that should break up that view as well.
on Main Street.
No, on the edge of the parking, so. Screen
the two
the west, yeah, the west side of the property.
In between the building and their house.
The 3-inch caliper.
Yeah.
And not everyone's gonna drive to the restaurant. I mean, folks like people at our office building and at the school are gonna walk to the restaurant for food. It's not all vehicular traffic.
Right. I mean, one of the things that we discussed before, I thought most of the parking would end up being utilized by the hotel
Yeah,
guests.
primarily. I mean, there was people who are staying there. You
Yeah.
wanna,
We're not gonna be driving in and out as much.
So I think in terms of trip generation, and I think the traffic study pretty adequately captured that and the maximum impact it could have. I think that another comment that came up with the public, just to make sure everyone's clear, it has been referred to the Department of Transportation. And so they may come back with suggestions as to how to improve traffic flow in and out of the space, pedestrian movement, be passed in and out of the space, could all be things that get addressed by the Department of Transportation. In fact, you remember that I had the suggestion that maybe prevention of left turns out of the hotel. To me, that feels like a kind of a no-brainer in terms of safety and movement of traffic of vehicles in and out of the facility. So I think it has been referred to the public's comment, and we'll see what kind of recommendations come from that.
So the bike path thing that they mentioned was just us trying to be within the new village requirements. It's not like we were proposing to put a bike path, it was a village requirement.
yeah, there's a required right of way for a future
We would love for it to connect to a longer bike
Yeah.
path, but
We're gonna.
That would consist of all of Main Street creating a bike
We're gonna
path
see
down.
that issue
Yeah.
in other projects too, where the bike path's gonna be intermittent.
Yeah.
New construction.
If I might suggest the board might want to go through the standards that are listed in the B2 district, because I know the applicants, use those as a guide, and we should go through those, to see if we agree that they've been satisfied. For instance, there's a specific part about roof decks and roof gardens saying that those are an allowed feature in this zoning district, and it talks about that they may not be greater than 65% of the available roof space. I assume that you used those criteria.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, so the board should just look over that and see if, if you suggest laying it out differently or, doing something different in accordance with the criteria in the code. I'm looking at, if you want to know the citation,
Yeah, could you
Sure.
share with us that?
it's, 212-13. F is the B2 district. And then within F,
And the deck is on the side of the roof that's closer to the parking lot, the convenient deli,
This is where it would be located.
so,
It's in the center of the
so
building.
it's in the very center.
yeah, so it's 8, and then paragraph 3. Do you want me to just read it?
That'd be helpful.
Sure.
Yeah,
Roof decks or roof gardens require a special use permit. Under no circumstances may roof decks or roof gardens surpass their maximum occupancy load determined by New York State Fire Prevention and Building Codes. Deck areas may not be greater than 65% of the available roof space, and non-deck areas must be positioned as a buffer between deck areas and nearby residential neighborhoods. Garden areas or combined garden and deck areas may not be greater than 85% of the available roof space, where the deck area, if part of a combined deck and garden, does not surpass 65% of the roof space.
well, with the current site plan, I believe it's at 43% of the overall roof space. It is positioned,
43% setback. It's setback 5 feet from the, I guess that's the western side of the array shops.
right,
So we actually, when we initially submitted this previously, we did go through this special use permit and actually made adjustments to the rooftop deck based on your suggestions. So we did this process early on to make sure that we were under the required amount of space and that we adjusted it to fit the right buffering.
The southern side, which would be the side adjacent to the residential neighborhood, has the sort of access stair. So it's sort of there as, which also serves as a physical buffer between the residential zone and our roof deck. The maximum occupancy allowed by the fire code is 49. We are, for our traffic numbers, we are positing 20 seats for any sitting up there. So we're below what we're allowed to do. The hours of it would be the hours of the restaurant, which were, I guess, 10.
Whatever the permissible use was within the zone.
But again, I mean, that's, we're sort of,
It was in a different.
certainly not 3 AM like some.
no, and I mean, those operational,
No
questions-
interest in
those operational questions are
Place for
tough.
the conversation to go, because, it was in a different zone in a different building, but there was a lot of attention to the roof deck proposed for the zero place construction. And so we got into some pretty specific detail about operating, parameters for it, time, what can take place, amplified music or not, parties that, or gatherings that might include other than guests or not. Like, so there's some real specifics we could get into that would end up being a part of your resolution. That could probably allay a lot of the concerns that the community members might have. What could take place, even if it's maxed at 49 people. 49 people could, That's a party. Maybe there's some things that you've considered already or would consider that might be kind of the parameters around time, type of event, amplified music, and those
The
qualities.
concern of that, I guess, would just be, are we negotiating against ourselves or are we negotiating, you know what I mean? Are we sort of complying with what's required by zoning?
In the code, exactly. It would
Well, you know,
be,
the code is the code, and then there's also discretion, of the
Yeah.
planning board that could recommend or even request
Yeah.
things. My suggestion from the board is to start with like, what would work for your business model that would also be considerate to the concerns of the community. And again, you don't have to share them now,
Yeah.
but I think that's something that I'm going to strongly recommend that there's some kind of parameters on the way the roof deck operates that would, beyond enforcement, that would set us up for success in the building.
Just wanted to add on that the section I just read does clarify that a roof deck is a special use permit in itself. So we have to look at the special use permit criteria, and you can apply conditions, you know, for a special use permit. So those are the type of things.
Yeah.
Great.
Is that a conversation we want to come back to with?
I mean, do you have, is there suggestions?
Like I
that
said,
the board is
hours of
presenting?
operation.
Is there,
Hours of operation.
is there suggested hours of operation that you're presenting to us that we should consider for this, or is there like, that's what I'm trying to comprehend.
We're definitely not gonna have the roof open at 3 a.m. or 2
No,
a.m.
we're not interested in making
We're not
it
interested
into a
in
college
making
bar
it
type.
1
of-
a.m.
I guess the concern is if it, you know, I mean, there's noise ordinances of the village, there are hours of operation allowed of the village, there's, you know, occupancy requirements. And so we would believe that those are sort of create fine parameters for us, for, you know, to operate this space. Though that said, I guess it's sort of, there are additional considerations that, is it the board, is it you guys that are suggesting them? I guess it's just, and I guess that's what I mean by negotiating against ourselves, or we sort of saying, you know, no one wants the thing to close at 2 PM. Zero Place roof deck was of a residential building, you know, accessed by the residents. And this, you know, is certainly integrated with the restaurant and hotel. Certainly if I'm at that restaurant, I want to go up and take a look out there. I would love to be up there. And I feel like a lot of people, would be, you know, in that scenario. So I don't know if it's, you know, I mean, there would be things to consider presumably, but I think that I'm not sure if it's us who suggest them or, I mean, you know, if the community has suggestions, certainly we would be, you know, we would be receptive to that, but it's not, doesn't seem that that's where we stand right now.
Well, so if this requires a special use permit, Emily, do they also have to provide a special use permit narrative for this?
Yeah, we provided that.
So there
We
are
previously
there are general criteria, and then there are specific criteria for different uses. So hotel has some specific criteria. But just any special use permit, you can cover the criteria there, the ones in 212-40.
Okay, there's a page here, roof deck.
So in our narrative here, I mean, it's sort of, you know, village noise ordinances in 143.4, there's a certain amount of noise that can't be exceeded past 11. So that to me seems like that's a parameter that we're not in control of. That would be any concerns or questions about 3 a.m. would be the issue of the village and not the issue of the operator of this roof deck, right? So I mean, sort of if people are breaking the law, they're breaking the law.
Yeah.
Well, I think there's one criteria I think we can land on probably now is when we did another restaurant bar. And what made it bars that they wanted to be open past midnight. So I don't believe, unless the code has changed, I think to be a restaurant, I don't think you're allowed to be open past midnight. So
I think we should look at what Zero Place did. I think we should look at what the code says and then propose what, you know, you guys are willing to be comfortable with and see how the board feels. So I was-
Yeah.
Is this, and does this all sort of indicate though that the narrative that we provided of the rooftop deck is not something that you feel comfortable with, or?
I think she's saying it's another special use permit. To add to your,
Right.
But it included a specific.
another roof deck.
Yeah.
Okay. That's what
Exactly.
they're asking.
Yeah.
Oh, it is here.
It's here. We did that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it is
this has already been addressed in previous meetings. That's what I mean. I'm not sure.
I don't see any operating hours in this, and I think that is something that we'd like to.
Well, and I guess, so,
discuss.
Well, that was part of the thing though, is how do we commit to operating hours? We don't even have a permission to build this yet.
So
it's
in
kind
the-
of,
yeah, I'm sorry, in the narrative that we provided to you guys, in, I think 22, is just the roof deck will be managed by the restaurant staff. Its hours of operations will coincide with the restaurant, but will not extend beyond 11 as required by the village noise ordinance. So
Okay, so it won't
So
be
it looks
open
like,
later
yeah.
than 11.
it won't be open, it won't, it seems, it appears to us that it is not allowed to be open.
Maybe we should all take a chance to read through that and when we.
Yeah, and I hope you all show some grace. You know, we have 5 of these a night.
Yeah,
no, I
Once a month.
understand. No, you're right, you're right.
Remembering something
No, no,
that was
no.
discussed 9 months ago.
No
It's
tone.
probably fair that we bring it back.
It
We
is,
now have a
it
public
is.
hearing.
It is,
So
it
No
is.
tone is
we
intended.
don't get paid to do this. You all-
No, I'm sorry. I'm not,
But
no
we will-
disrespect by it.
I think what we're doing is drawing attention to something that has been brought into the public
Yes.
comment, public hearing. And and I'm sure everybody will review it carefully and maybe make a suggestion so that you're not seeming like you're negotiating it yourself. But we also know there's code, we know there's law enforcement, we know there are parameters are already in place. So I think we want to double back on this one and make sure we got it right. And if not, ask for more language or ask for it to be incorporated into the resolution.
Yeah, I mean, I think we had some understanding that the roof deck would be a point of discussion. And I guess it's sort of, what are the suggested options, you know, from either from this board or from the community? Because, you know, the intention is just to have it operate.
So that'll have hours of operation, right? What kind of activities, right? Can be similar to Zero Place kind of details, right? Like what you can, what are acceptable, you know, activities up there. But, you know, like a heavy metal.
Maximum occupancy, right, live.
Yeah, I think amplified music is a big one. I mean, there's a general noise ordinance, obviously, in the village. It's
Yeah.
essentially, you shouldn't have to hear someone else's sound. That's generally what it says, up to certain decibels. But you might say, we're not gonna have amplified music up there, or we're not gonna have live performance up there, or you might put some restrictions on that. Or again, as I mentioned earlier, that might be part of your business model, in which case we're not going to tell you what you can or can't do, but we're going to want to hear from you how you're going to make sure that it's not something that is disruptive to the neighborhood, even though it's a commercial building in a zone made for this purpose.
Well, I guess, I mean, we can resubmit the rooftop deck narrative, or we can, you know, that we.
have it here. I was looking in the wrong folder, so we have it here.
There's a lot of folders.
Yeah. There's folders with.
A lot of changes.
A lot of change, a long time.
But I mean, I
I'm
think
still
we may
trying to
need-
find the most recent.
Yeah, we just may need to put some more specifics to it.
Yeah, I mean, I think certainly that's fair. I just want to make sure that what we have provided as a narrative, you know, we're responding to.
Right, but then it's the board has the opportunity to add conditions. So.
Yeah, we add the details to this, maybe some notes on the plan that reflect what
Like-
we're putting in here.
If I could add just a couple comments, and I realize it should be in the narrative. It's important to note that the building is designed with the elevator and roof. I'm blanking on the term, but there's a masonry wall barrier on the south side of the roof deck. And the likelihood, the reality is that the time of occupancy will be when Main Street is busy as well. And the traffic and noise on Main Street will far surpass any possible noise that's going to occur even if you characterize it as noise, decibel level that will be on the roof deck. It's certainly not, I'm sure, the owner's intention to have very loud heavy metal bands up there performing for 25 people at 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock in the morning on a Monday. That's just not what's going to happen. You're just thinking about it through common sense. It's not a bar. It's a small restaurant serving the guests and folks who come to the building. It just, just logically, it's not going to have an impact on the neighborhood.
So first, it would be helpful if you could identify yourself and the relationship to the project.
Oh, sorry, it's Rick Alfondre, Alfondre Architecture.
And secondly, if I could say exactly, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
but I
please.
just want to say thanks for that. And I think that logic and likelihood are possibilities that we could consider, but also capturing that in a narrative that we know is complete and airtight and may even have some things that we ask of you is something that we should work on together as a board around this application.
Well, I think we're happy to hear your comments in response to the rooftop narrative as provided. And see where that, see where we go with that. But again, I think there would be a great deal of interest of people in this community to go up and enjoy themselves on this roof deck. I don't think this is going to be, unlike Zero Place, which is a private place, which I had the fortune of seeing, and it's wonderful. But
our neighbors may have a better opportunity to view that moon from the rooftop. We're not, would love to have them, obviously.
I think the fear with Zero Place is that it's, relatively close to Huguenot Street, which is a fairly extensive residential neighborhood, as well as a nationally important historic district. It turned out in reality that it's not an impact on that neighborhood. In this case, this particular building actually has a physical barrier between the roof deck and the Center Street neighborhood. And it's a much smaller proposed use. So I do understand that we can couch or somehow define the use, the hours of operation, and the likely decibel levels or other types of music or other things that may occur there. But I think the reality is that if it is part of a restaurant and a restaurant use, the hours of operation of the restaurant will help define that pretty clearly.
Yes, I think knowing those hours is very important. I'm also, questioning the idea that this boundary is completely separating it, because my understanding is that the building doesn't go above 35 feet. The height of the parapet is 35 feet. So the height of this barrier can't be above the height of the parapet, right?
no, that is what is it? 212. You're allowed 10% of it's on the bulk table here on our application here. So 212.18A, allowable 10% of rooftop use for access stairs, elevator, penthouse, things of that sort. And
So-
we are using 9%.
And so, but my question is, does that go above the height of those?
Yes.
Okay, and how high above the parapet do those?
43 feet is the top of the stair tower.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, so I mean, so per the code, we're allowed a certain amount of stuff up on our roof that is exceeding the height limit. And so what we, this is a stair it's an access stair and an elevator.
Right.
And we're staying beneath the allowable 10%.
Even this is an example, there's a lot of information that we've discussed about the roof deck in this bit of time that's not included in the narrative. As I'm rereading the narrative, I realize I read the narrative, it's just that it's brief. And so
Yeah.
the idea that there's obstruction in the southern direction caused by the wall that we just discussed, I think could be helpful.
I mean, I don't mean
It's in
to,
the plan narrative.
not to be contentious,
No,
but the rear of the roof deck will be screened visually and acoustically by the stair tower and elevator penthouse. Wall height, and elevator penthouse.
That's in the narrative on the plan, not
That's
in the
not-
special use.
This is not in this, this is not in the special unit. This is in the submitted rooftop deck narrative along with the submitted streetscape narrative and the submitted stub parking connection narrative. You guys should have, and not to say that you're not hardworking volunteers who've read every second, I'm saying we have submitted it.
Does that explain about the hours or the connection with the restaurant? That's not in the narrative.
Well, let me read this and you have it and we can go through this again, but I apologize. So the goal of 184 Main Roof Deck is to provide patrons of the hotel and restaurant with a peaceful outdoor space to enjoy extraordinary views of the Shawangunk Ridge and surrounding areas. After the last few years of managing a pandemic, outdoor seating space for restaurants has become invaluable and has likely been the reason some locations have been able to stay open. The roof deck will be managed by restaurant staff. Its hours of operation will coincide with the restaurant, but will not extend beyond 11 p.m. as required by village noise ordinance set forth in 143-4 of the village code. Food and drinks may be served during restaurant hours, but will not extend beyond the 11 p.m. curfew. Light entertainment may be provided for patrons, including live musical performances prior to 11 p.m. All activities on the roof deck will be in conformance with the noise ordinances set out in section 143 of the village code. The rear of the roof deck will be screened visually and acoustically by the stair tower and elevator penthouse. Wall height at the rear of the building is 9 feet minimum. Additionally, there is a 42-inch parapet wall around the entire roof that will further mitigate sound issues.
Would be very helpful to have that in the rooftop narrative, yes.
Great.
Okay, so I apologize, and my understanding was that was part of it as
Yeah,
far as
we were looking at the documents that are the supplemental.
the special
SUP
permit. Okay.
applications, not the,
Yeah.
not the plan finding.
Okay.
but it's-
Because I thought we would know.
In
That's
both,
what I was
in both
referring.
places, there's really great information. It'd be great if it was part of this, and it would be great if the public had a chance to see that before the next public hearing. I think we could work out a lot.
Certainly, and I did not realize that my assumption was that it was part of all of the public record.
Yeah, in addition, what is the date of the most recent site plan?
Yeah, there's some data today, so that's,
That's for the DPW.
oh.
May 2nd.
Sorry.
May 2nd, 2023. Okay. Because on page 4, there are 4 elevations and none of them show this rear mechanical stairway.
Yeah, it's missing. So I noticed this thing.
And those renderings also include an additional stairway that's extra or something.
I'm not sure why the penthouse is not showing up on this one.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's not
Because it's
there.
on this old one.
So if you could update the
Yeah,
those
I will update
and
that.
all renderings to be accurate.
I'm sorry about that. I didn't realize that somehow I dropped it. But so that certainly leads to some confusion.
It even says top of stair tower, but it's just not drawn. So we get it. See how the height
I
says
see,
that?
yeah.
Yeah, okay, we'll get it back.
Yeah, I guess I wasn't. The
Yeah. that
Okay.
piece is kind of-
they've been updated a few times, and I guess this was I lost it.
Well, maybe we should try to make sure we have the most current version of everything in one place so that the public can look at it before the next hearing.
Yeah, that would be great.
I think that would be really helpful
Yeah.
because even through today online, it said 75 seats, for the restaurant. It wasn't until we came here tonight that we heard about that adjustment, which is great. So I think that would really be helpful. Okay.
We may just have old versions as well as new
Right,
versions
right.
all in the same place.
Well, no, or I mean,
As the person who puts the things in the
Yeah.
folder,
Yeah.
that's what's happening.
Yeah.
They're dated sequentially for the newer files, so, yeah.
So maybe, Autumn, how would you recommend doing this? Should we have a one
I'm
final?
gonna have to look at this. This is an ongoing problem with many of our files, is that I do not like to rename files from the original file that was sent. That's a bad practice. In terms of what's submitted to the planning board in general, unless the things are inconsistent, names, titles, dates, all the way through, it's difficult to determine what is the most recent document. So what I do is I put them in folders with dates indicating when they've been received after the initial reception of the first files.
I guess if we submitted something, like, for instance, if we submitted these narratives in 2022, but then we had updated plans, so then from a sort of a
Right.
hierarchy, someone's not gonna look down and,
Well, if you're gonna be submitting new plans that show this rooftop.
you mean, well, updated render,
Updated renderings. Yeah.
not accidentally chopping. We're not making any change,
Accurate renderings.
accurate.
If you're gonna submit that, and you're also, I don't know if you want to make any changes to the narrative to include.
I mean, can we just add what was in the plan?
There, exactly.
So add
Narrative changes, special use narrative?
We'll
Okay.
put that on web in one package, then everyone will be looking at the same thing.
Okay.
How is it going to be heated and cooled?
If we could have a date for submission, we will help. We'll put a second set of eyes on it, so Sam doesn't miss anything. It's not you, Sam, but you know, the technology of stuff happens.
Every submission till this one, so I did pretty good.
Yeah, but we can ask Michael or Robin or Ryan to just take a second look just to.
Yeah, is there a date that you would need the submission completed by before the first August meeting?
So the Monday before.
Okay.
As well as all of the narratives.
Yep.
Oh, it is August 1st.
I mean, I guess essentially, yeah, so like a sort of a most, I mean, and it seems like this is between the applicant and the board as far as how that's arranged.
I mean, I would prefer it if it was at least 2 weeks before that August meeting to give the public time to look at it.
Yeah, I mean, this is, yeah, there's a white box that's covering something that's not supposed to be covering it. And
It's all done. It just needs a technical fix. It's not that there's any work that actually has to be done.
2 weeks is a good suggestion.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't think we have any changes here, so I mean, we can really submit these fairly instantaneously.
Information's in different places that we'd like to see in one memo,
Yep.
and then the hence consistency. That would be great.
Perhaps with a cover letter listing everything with whatever the date it is.
The last
That is
thing,
my
just
typical
to
move.
kind of shift gears and address another thing that the public commented about was we did visit the historic preservation, is it committee? And commission, and they had made several suggestions for what our exterior structure should look like, which we followed to coincide with the kind of architectural design of the town. So we don't want it to look just like a rectangular box out of place, but
We actually met with them twice.
we met with them twice and considered every detail.
Yeah.
They seem pleased.
Did board members have any more questions, or can we move on to these other items? Specifically, I wanted to ask about referring this to Ulster County Planning.
Should get the.
Should we get the-
plans, but if you
Wait for
want
the
to
updated.
vote to do that pending receipt of the updated plan, renderings, we could do that.
Okay. So could I get a motion to refer this to Ulster County Planning Board pending the updated plans?
Is that already?
Can I verify?
Not this version of it. I don't.
Not this first.
Yeah, yeah.
What
I did.
version?
I wrote refer to UCPB and check. And that's
When
usually
was
means
that?
at G6. But
Oh, by us? I didn't think we did that.
we declared unlisted.
Did that, yeah.
coordinated
Sure was in
vehicle.
Ulster County, transportation,
The DOT.
DOT.
No,
That was separate, yeah.
I mean, I was just noting it, I don't know. that-
No, thank you. Let me.
Yeah,
check.
I remember you posted that, so. I mean, I mean, when we reduced the overall size of the restaurant and modified the room count, I mean, again, in the scheme of things, I think those were not,
We did,
You didn't vote, right?
I'm sorry, 50 minutes. Chair has this be referred to Ulster County Planning Board and William Swenson note seeker to be completed before.
Well, we needed to get the new, yeah.
So is that,
Yeah.
that constitutes.
Oh, the
the-
update.
And we have that now.
The updates, to the
Yeah.
yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah.
It makes sense.
Now.
Yeah. It's a premature check, Andy.
Yeah.
These things that. I know. Yeah.
you're gonna stick a pin in it, like, checking.
I missed something.
Okay, well, now that that's settled, I'd like to get a motion to refer this to the Ulster County Planning, pending the updated site plans.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So I can check it now.
Yeah.
Correctly.
So you're gonna submit it to the planning,
Pending.
well,
Yeah.
well, I guess then for
Updated
clarification.
rendering. Updated
So, I mean, I'm updating page 2 of this. We want a new date on, so we're gonna have a whole new set saying like 7/7 or something like that? Would that be helpful?
It would.
Okay. That's easy.
And you want
So you have to
the rooftop narrative to be included into.
add that in this.
New date on that.
And we did.
And I can include also all of my nice renderings for the roof deck. In this.
As long as they're showing the correct.
Accurate. So they show the penthouse there.
Okay.
All right.
Great. So then the only other thing, I guess, regarding seeker, we're still waiting for responses on our request to meet
We're
lead
working on
agency.
that. So,
Um,
Yeah. So I guess we'll reconvene on this in August and hope to have some of these things.
yeah,
complete.
yeah.
So the next meeting, so the public hearing continues in August.
Those first.
So the meeting between then and now, we don't need to, I mean, we'll get you stuff in the next few days, but, okay, so we're, okay, we're good.
Yeah.
Sorry, I missed that. So it has been circulated or we're waiting to?
We haven't actually sent it out yet. So
Okay.
yeah.
But it's planned,
It's, yes, it's in the works.
so it's being circulated.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
30 days.
Has,
Oh, it needs 30 days.
So if
So
that's
then-
about to be circulated, is that? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it takes, so after you circulate it, we need 30 days. So we would have to come back for the second August meeting as well,
Because right now it's July.
because it wasn't circulated
That's a
already.
good point. Yeah, we had a miscommunication about that. So, yeah, maybe we should, do you want to do it for the second? August
Adjourn it
meeting?
to the second
Yeah.
one, okay.
Then we'll be sure to have, because the county planning, well, they're meeting next week, but we don't have, do you think we would still be able to get it in for them, or is it too late for this meeting?
I could probably try to get it in if I get them in tomorrow. They tend to be pretty good about putting things on, so. But I can't guarantee it.
Okay,
For which meeting?
For their meeting next week, because county planning board meeting next Wednesday, meeting today, or, yeah. They would normally do it today.
Which means we have to get that in like ASAP.
We have to get what?
Everybody.
And that's for the EAF as well.
Well, if we're gonna do, why don't we just do it the second meeting of August, because then it'll be after the August county planning board meeting also. So if we don't get it in for this one, we'll get it in
Right.
for the next one.
Right, since we're going to have to wait for the other agencies anyway.
Yeah, yeah, I didn't know that was, I'm new here, I didn't know that was my job to take charge of.
No,
PMLI, but-
that's okay, it's understandable. So given that I already made that motion to adjourn it until August 1st, should I just make a new motion to adjourn the
Yeah,
public hearing until?
folks are still here that were interested, I think, so we could just change that to August. What was it, 15th?
I'm a little bit confused. I mean, our documents would take 2 days to turn around at the most, considering that basically we have to assemble all of the drawings and the site plans and update the narrative, which could theoretically be sent to county planning by the end of the week, along with and circulated with other agencies. It's not possible to get that done so that we could reconvene on August 1st.
Well, county planning meets next week, so they have, they need things in advance in order to take their action. So I'm not sure what their deadline is, but I think we're cutting it close. Plus, we need the 30 days for, which I can do tomorrow, to do the seeker lead agency circulation. So it just seems like it would be wasting your time to come back on the 1st if we are still a few days away from, having those things.
Yeah,
Understood.
Rick, we can't do seeker on 8/1, no matter what. So
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so if that doesn't need a motion, just let everyone in the audience know that we will be discussing this more on August 15th. Our second meeting in August, and we will have all current up-to-date documents on the website well before then for you to review. And if you'd like to email your comments to the planning board beforehand, that's always helpful as well. Great. Anything else?
as far as the EAF, we made all the changes that were talked about.
We got that.
So I want to just make sure that's ready to go. Okay.
So we label that one as the most current.
Yeah, I looked it over. It looks good.
So in our resubmission of stuff, that's not part of what we need to, you want, okay. I just want to make.
It's the updated rendering and the updated.
Drawings with today's date or whatever, and
And especially use permit narrative. Okay, and then the EAF is going to be circulated, so we cover that 30 days. All right. Awesome. Is that it?
August 15th.
So,
Okay.
okay.
Great.
Thanks.
Thank you,
very
guys.
much.
Happy 4th.
You too.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rick.
Okay, I think that is everything. So could I get a motion to adjourn, please? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thanks. Oh, yeah, no problem. Thanks for being here.
Alan?
I haven't seen him here on my side. You're hiding.
Right around the corner from you, actually. Yeah. How have you been?